Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of Becoming Bob. I'm Alex, and today I'll be painting along with episode 3 of The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross. I'd like to thank all of you for joining me today, but I'd like to say an extra special thank you to any of you who supported me on Indiegogo. With your help, I've made it this far, and I'll be able to make it so much further. So sincerely, thank you. If you've never seen episode 3 of The Joy of Painting, I'd recommend checking it out here. And if you're new to my channel, episode 2 can be seen right here. This is a young channel and I can use all the support I can get, so if you like what I'm doing here, please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you've got any recommendations, let me know in the comments below. So, without further ado, let's get painting. Okay, so in this episode, as you can see, I'm painting on a black canvas. What I did was I painted the canvas with a black gesso a few days before filming the episode and let it dry completely. In the episode of The Joy of Painting, all Bob says he's done to the canvas at this point is put on a thin coat of alizarin crimson, which I've also done. It's not until about 7 minutes into the episode that he actually mentions that he had put the black gesso on the canvas first. And so if you were watching it live, that would come as quite a shock. Now I'm applying some Van Dyke Brown to the corners here of the canvas. I'm having a little trouble getting it to stay on there, because although I put the alizarin crimson on the canvas after having the dry gesso on there, it's not creating the wet on wet kind of a flow that you get with this technique. I think that one other step Bob may have taken, and I found some things online that kind of hint to this, is mixing his alizarin crimson with some sort of oil, linseed oil, walnut oil, something like that, before putting it on the canvas, essentially making it into a liquid crimson, much like the liquid white or liquid clear, just with a crimson tint. So anyways, I've got as even coating of Van Dyke Brown on there as I possibly could get, which was pretty tough. And now I'm going in to put the sun for the sunset here. Once again, there's not a slick enough surface on the canvas to really make this paint mix in and blend well. It's supposed to be mixing in with the alizarin crimson and creating a nice orange color, but the orange color you see there is all coming from alizarin crimson I picked up from the palette. There's really nothing coming through from the background. Also, the colors are just sticking and not sliding around like they're supposed to. Just trying to make little X's and get as much of the area covered as much as I can. Because my paint wasn't going on very smoothly or very quickly, I was falling behind where Bob was in the episode and having to rush to try and keep up. I think you'll see that that really affects later on in the episode. Got my 2-inch blender out there, trying to blend the sky. Yeah, there were suddenly like 3 or 4 hairs on there. I don't know where they were all coming from, but trying to make those crisscross strokes. Nice broad strokes back and forth. Kind of blend it all together. Going in, mixing some green and red together. And kind of putting some far off hills dark first, of course, and then I'll come back through with the highlights. The fan brush there, picking up some nice yellow and red. Mixing it together on the brush there. And just putting in some far off vegetation. Adding the yellow like this really shows where the hills are a lot better. Putting the dark color on, I mean, it's kind of an amorphous blob, but once you put this on, it gives a lot more detail and a lot more definition. Going in with the 2-inch brush, mixing up those same kind of colors. Kind of got a little extra red in there, and putting some reflections in. Yeah, you can kind of see how the paint looks really kind of dry and kind of scraping along there instead of flowing and nice smooth like it would if I'd had a more liquid surface on the canvas to begin with. Brush it across, giving it that watery effect. Cleaning off my brush there. Just clean the fan brush. Picking up some sap green and alizarin crimson mixed together. And putting some evergreen trees back there on those hills. I'm just using the same technique I used in episode 2 to make the evergreen trees. The zigzag motion using the fan brush. Now the ones I was putting there, I was trying to make a lot smaller, but making some of the smaller details with these paintbrushes is something that's gonna take some time to really get used to. Now I've got my palette knife out there, trying to pull it out pretty flat and cut it across, cut in some water lines here. You know, I really felt like I had a lot more control over the palette knife. And I don't know if I'm just getting better with it, getting more used to using it, or if maybe it did have something to do with the dry canvas I was working on. I hope it's more than I'm getting used to it. Because I felt a lot better about it in this painting than I did in the last couple, for the most part. You can see there on the top of the easel, I've got the microphone sticking out. I tried to have it mounted a little further out from the canvas so that the sounds would pick up a little bit more evenly from the top and the bottom of the canvas. The problem I ran into, though, was the audio cable that connected the microphone to the camera was faulty, and all the sound from that camera was lost. So the sound you're hearing in the background is just sound picked up from my phone, which was the phone that's recording this angle here. This part was tough. I'm trying to fill in most of the the dark parts for most of the painting here. Just trying to put on tons of color. It's It's a really dark green, kind of brownish green. Just working as fast as I can. Trying to get as much off the brush as possible. But with that dry canvas, it's definitely a challenge. Now at this point, this dark green in some places, near the corners where I'd already put on the Van Dyke brown, is actually the third layer of paint. So you've got the alizarin crimson, the Van Dyke brown, and now this sap green, alizarin crimson kind of mix. And with the three of those paints together, it actually started to get a little easier to work on this canvas. It was not as dry as it was, and putting stuff on top of that went a lot smoother. Mixing up some colors there using the palette knife again. Gonna put some tree trunks in. And up until about this point, I wasn't feeling very good about this painting, but putting these tree trunks in went a lot better than it has. I felt like I was really getting the hang of using this knife, and it made me feel a lot better about where the painting was going. You also notice the knife's been painted a nice matte black color. That helps to reduce the glare coming from the lights. And I think it helps with the camera's focus some, although there are still some autofocus issues, as you can kind of see. Got my 1-inch foliage brush out there, mixing together various colors. Phthalo green, some cad yellow, a little permanent red, some more of the phthalo green. And you'll see me do a lot of that in this episode. I tried to mix as many different foliage colors as I could to try and differentiate between the various shrubs and trees that I put on the canvas. Some little oranger there. Putting some leaves on that tree now. Some stuff there at the base of the tree. One thing I really noticed with this painting that I think I'm going to try and work on in the future is that when I'm putting the foliage on here, I'm not leaving enough dark spaces. I'm leaving some, but I'm pressing maybe a little too hard and getting a little bit too much coverage. So you don't get as much of the depth or the 3D kind of look as Bob gets. Just trying to cover it with as much as I can, as fast as I can. While I'm doing all this coverage, I'll go ahead and give my shout out for the episode. This week I'd like to say an extra special thank you to Justin. Justin's been a longtime friend of mine. Spent a lot of time in the art room with him back in high school. We go way back. He's moved far away from here, so we don't see each other very often, but we'll always be friends, and it was great to see him show his support. So, Justin, thanks a lot. Adding some highlights now to these tree trunks over there, kind of curling it around, giving it more of a barky look. And now back to the good old 1-inch brush for some more foliage. I've got my knife again there, mixing together some blue, a little brown. That's Prussian blue and Van Dyke brown. Cutting off a little bit there, and I'm going to put in a path. At least that's the idea. Like I said, some of my knife work got better on this painting. I still feel like with my paths and things like that, they're coming out a little bit smeary. I showed this painting to my wife as soon as I was finished with it. And she saw the path and she said, "Oh, Alex, you did such a great job on that snow." So, you know, I'm working on it. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually making some liquid white on the palette itself. I'd gotten liquid white, I had opened the liquid white, but I hadn't taken the seal off because I was in a rush to get painting. And so I basically had to mix a little bit of paint thinner with a little bit of the titanium white and hope that it worked. I think it actually worked pretty good. Definitely would have worked better if I could have used the actual liquid white, which next episode I'll make 100% certain I have ready to go. But I still think the results were okay. Putting in some shrubs to kind of cover up the sides of the trail a little bit and push it back into the painting. I mean, that's really what this painting was just foliage practice. Tons and tons of foliage practice. And you can see that the canvas is, 3/4 of the way covered by just shrubs and trees. And, even though it doesn't look the best in my painting, I'm sure that doing this practice helped me to get a little bit better. You can see on the tree I'm working on now, with that little extra bit of green, I am trying to leave a little bit more of the dark space there. And I feel like that tree kind of came out the best out of all of them. That's my personal preference anyways. Back to the knife. Gonna put in a little stone here. Just a nice base color. And then going back to mix up a little bit of highlight. And trying to mix up a little bit more of that homemade liquid white there. You can really start to see all the different colors I tried to mix up and use to give each little shrub and plant its own unique kind of color. Going in with the knife now to cut in some sticks and twigs there in the back. And that's the technique that I have to admit I didn't quite understand at first when I was doing that on the first couple paintings, but I tried to really put them in a way that looked a lot more like, natural plants, how they would grow. And I feel like it really does help to add those different layers into the painting. So instead of just kind of randomly scratching in a bunch of things, you see I'm trying to do it in a little bit more orderly manner. A little bit more thoughtful. Getting the old script liner out there. Getting some of the permanent red. Trying to pull it out to a real fine point at the end. A little bit of paint thinner to try and thin it out some so that it'll go on smooth like ink. There we go. And now, even though this painting's signed, I guess it's not done yet. Bob kept going on, using the script liner brush now to put in some various limbs and branches. And I didn't really see what he did, so at this point, I'm just kind of winging it. So I'm just about done here. Thanks for watching episode 3 of Becoming Bob. If you've not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing and liking this episode. I can use all the support I can get as a young channel, and I just really appreciate everyone who takes the time to like and subscribe. And thanks to the generous help of those who supported me on Indiegogo, I'm going to be able to make a lot more of these episodes. And subscribing will help keep you notified when those episodes come out. So, with that, I'm pretty pleased. Thanks for watching.